Allah Akbar.
I felt a greater sense of responsibility to improve society.
Keith's oath-taking ceremony became somewhat of a controversy. Being a Muslim, he wanted to use the Quran to take his oath, which had never happened before, as most of the congressmen had used the Bible. How was that moment when you were swearing in on the Quran?
Well, you know, it was a moment that was pregnant with history. You know, I felt that that there was a lot of people watching, and I believe you were there, and you may recall that the Rayburn Caucus conference room was full of journalists, and so we could hear the shutters going off. It sounded they were clicking madly and wildly, and so it was really quite a moment, and it's something that my 12-year-old daughter still remembers very well.
In fact, the copy of the Quran that Congressman Ellison used to take his oath belonged to Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. What was that feeling when you first took oath on the Holy Quran, which belonged to Jefferson?
Well, it was kind of a thrill, you know. It was a great thrill to do that. It was evidence that in America you could practice your faith as you choose. There actually is a provision in the United States Constitution which says that there are no religious tests for assuming political office. So in other words, nobody could ban you from office because of your being a Muslim or Jewish or Christian or whatever. You know, there's no religious test. So when the people objected to me using the Quran, they really had no legal leg to stand on. They were wrong. And I said to myself that if you're going to swear to uphold the Constitution, maybe you should read it, because some of those people who were objecting clearly didn't know what was in that document that they were swearing to uphold that day.
You know, do you think this diversity of faith and of ideas and of traditions in the U.S. is what makes America?
Absolutely, it's what makes America. Because we're all bumping up against each other, you know. We're all having to listen to each other's point of view. We're all having to deal with each other's traditions. You know, we're all, and whenever you encounter a tradition that is not your own, you're always inspired to ask, well, what is that tradition? Why do you guys do it? How long have you been doing it? And what can I learn from it? So if you grow up in the United States, you should know something about Christmas, Yom Kippur, and Ramadan. You should know something about all of these traditions. Kwanzaa, which is an African-American observance, and various traditions. And it actually enriches the individual to be more aware of circumstances around. You know, you can't just stay isolated in your own little enclave. The world is going to come in and grab you, and you're going to have to learn something about it.
As a public official, Keith is also known to be outspoken. And when it comes to speaking his mind, Congressman Ellison is on top of the issues closest to his heart. You've spoken about the issues of Imam and politics, both things together. Do you agree with that?
Faith and politics?
Yes.
Well, I believe that your faith can inform your politics, but I don't think it's a good idea to impose a particular set of religious ideas on people who do not want to be subjected to those ideas. In America, we have a very religiously observant population. People go to the church, the mosque, the synagogue all the time. But our government is a free zone for religion. So, for example, in the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, it says, Congress shall make no law establishing a state religion. Well, that's good. We don't want a state religion because we want the people to be able to choose their own religion.
What about the controversies related to CARE and Nation of Islam that we keep hearing about?
Well, you know, CARE is a civil rights organization. They are going to draw criticism from certain quarters because they are challenging the status quo. And so I think that it's important for our country to make sure that, you know, you don't blame the firemen for the fire. You know what I mean? If there's an injustice and somebody comes to address the injustice, you don't blame the person who's addressing the injustice. You blame the injustice. So I think that for CARE, I can't say that I know every single thing CARE has ever done, but from what I do know about them, they're trying to improve the quality of justice in our country.
Ellison, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, moved to Minnesota in 1987 to attend the University of Minnesota Law School, where he earned his law degree in 1990. Keith and his wife, Kim Ellison, have lived on the Minneapolis North Side for the past 18 years. They are the proud parents of 4 children. When was that pivotal moment in your life when you realized that I have to go towards public office?
I was an adult by that time. My oldest son, who's now 20 years old, was around 10, and I had been working on individual cases. Wherever I found an injustice, I would take the case, file the lawsuit, and fight in court for the individual person to get justice. But one day I went to the state legislature, you know, and we have 50 states in the United States, and each state has its own legislative body. And I went to the Minnesota state legislature and heard some members of that legislative body making some statements that I thought were discriminatory and unfair. So I came home and I was complaining to my wife about how stupid they were and how come they didn't understand the importance of the Constitution. And she said to me, she said, well, you know, you should either stop complaining or do something about it. And I felt like she was right. You know, I needed to do something or stop. And I think as a father, as I saw my son getting older, I felt a greater sense of responsibility to improve society, to make society better so that when he gets to be an adult, he can have an easier walk, you know, and not just complain about what was wrong, but to try to build up institutions that were good and just and fair to everyone. Tolerant and open of people's different worship traditions.